Yeah, we are recording. Okay, so let's start. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the coffee chat. So there are a few visitors. So just to bring everybody up to speed, um, this is basically just a forum where we share inspirational stories from small businesses. And if anyone just takes one small piece of this away, then we've actually achieved our goal. So last week we had Saviwe James, who shared with us how she went from the fashion business to becoming a mom and then providing meals from her kitchen and then becoming a single mom, and then how her business just started to explode. And it was quite an inspirational story. So let's just quickly go through the agenda. So today we are going to talk about doing business differently, and I'll go into a little bit of detail about that just now. And then I'll introduce today's speaker, and then after we've had a chat to her, we'll have some Q&A. I'll share some of the takeaways from her story, and then we'll wrap up, and then we can all go and have a cold weekend. So today is about doing business differently, and we're going to chat to a lady from a company called Averly, and I'll let her tell you all about how they do things slightly differently. But let me first introduce her. So now her name is Zabeth Venter. As I've been told now, you spell it or you pronounce it with an S and leave the T out. So Zabeth is a chartered accountant. She spent about 11 years in an audit company, and then she moved into insurance for her sons and spent a couple of years there. And this is where she fell in love with machine learning. And people who don't know what that means is artificial intelligence and technology. And she gained quite a bit of experience in finance and data transformation and risk assessments, typical insurance stuff. And then in 2015, she was privileged to meet an international neuroscience team that specializes in measuring emotions. And she spent quite a bit of time with us and other machine learning teams learning and defining behavioral modeling. Now, it sounds really complicated, but I'll let her tell you all about that. And now during the lockdown, she's like the rest of us. You either sit on your iPad or you pick up a book and you start touching base with things that make you feel comfortable. And she rekindled her love for reading and cooking. And she's a mom. She's got two little girls. And when she told me about them, she says she gives a whole new meaning to girl power in their family. And they love spending time outdoors. Believe me, Zabeth, I know exactly how that feels. All the animals in our house are female. We have 3 daughters, plus a wife, plus 4 animals, all female. So believe me, I know how to stand strong. So I'm going to go straight into the first question then is, Zabeth, why the property rental business?
I think that started with our family business. So we've been in property for more than 35 years. I've been the rogue agent, sort of finding my feet in audit and insurance, but property is really our passion, and the rental business especially. So yeah, that was just a natural fit for me to join the team and actually try and see how can we do things differently.
Okay. All right. So then I know the next question is actually quite closely linked, but how did Averly actually come about? I know your husband was involved in property development for quite a while, but how did Averly pop out?
So that was basically a culmination of what I saw happening in insurance, where people started using machine learning and all these fancy things like AI to solve their problems. And we sat and we said, so what is property rental all about? And I think everybody will agree at the heart of what you do is behavior and relationship management. I mean, from the word go, when you enter into a rental contract, the agent or the landlord takes a bet on how the tenant will behave in his property. On the other side, the tenant takes a bet on how the agent and landlord will treat him. So we actually then, when we met the neuroscience team, said, here is a chance for us to really delve into the fundamentals of rentals and see how we can contribute positively. So how we can actually get people to work together to a common goal and do good, that and that is where we actually then sat around the table and said, okay, let's do this. And we started the Averly concept.
Okay, so maybe you just want to expand on that. What problem are you guys solving?
Okay, so if you think about when you apply for a rental, currently today you have to go through credit checks, you have to give all your employment contracts and basically your whole pedigree, what color car you love. And the reason why we have to do all of that is because the agent or landlord is trying to assess the risk. And is trying to assess how will you behave in that property? Will you pay your rent on time? But I think a lot of people will agree that not all of that actually aligns to the actual risk that they are trying to determine. On the other side, when a tenant enters the transaction, he has no idea what the agent or landlord would behave like. So that, in essence, is what we are trying to address on day one. How do you get to know the guy on the other side of the table? And will you get along? And will you actually have a good relationship throughout the rental process? And we have actually formulated a survey that does exactly that. So it's like a meet and greet. When you've done it, you get a much better idea of the person you are dealing with. And that should enable you to actually then proactively act on that. What type of property should I show the person? Yeah, and all those kind of things. So the fundamental problem that we're trying to solve is how do you get to know the person on the other side? And then throughout your contract, sort of spark positive behavior, that people get to see what the true impact of just taking accountability and understanding your impact on the person on the other side. Yeah.
It's a fascinating concept because, I mean, up until now, it's always been a case of if you wanted to rent something, there was just a contract put in front of you and you're only too grateful to sign it. And you never really knew who you were dealing with. If you were, say, you're the person who's renting the property and your landlord could be an absolute nice guy or a terrible person to deal with. So your app actually brings the two parties together. Have you had any pushback from landlords in terms of they start getting bad ratings and less people want to start dealing with them?
Actually, up to date, none whatsoever. So I think, and yeah, this is now going into a little bit of this philosophical side of why we are doing it, but I think the world is ready to make some positive changes. So yeah, people are actually so excited about this, especially because we don't have a punitive angle to this. We actually say, yeah, so even if you get a bad rating on day one, that's not the end of the world. The big pivoting point for the person should be, I can actually better my rating by understanding why exactly I got the rating that I did. So, and that is the angle of Averly, to say it's about positive changes in everybody's world. So no, to date, people are actually excited and they are asking us to introduce a lot of things that some of it is on our development path, but other things are actually brand new concepts that they would like to Averly to actually also solve.
Oh, that's okay. That's fantastic. So can we on to our next question then? Why did you launch during COVID? And then how did this actually affect you? Because I mean, it couldn't have been easy.
No, it definitely wasn't. I think COVID was incidental. So we've always planned to launch in August this year. And then COVID happened in March. And we decided that we're not going to postpone. We will continue and work through the last kinks and get the app ready to launch. And actually, it was just the exact time to launch, because I think we are solving quite a lot of problems that is in the market today. So how did it affect us? Funds dried up quite rapidly in the first few weeks of COVID. So we really had to, what you call it, nip and tuck everywhere to make sure that we can actually proceed and not skimp on any of the quality stuff that we wanted to do. But what was actually very endearing for me was the fact that all our partners that we worked with came together and said they are absolutely committed to this. And some of them actually gave us enormous discounts on the work that they are doing. Others said, hey, you know what, let's do payment plans. When we're out of this COVID world, we'll settle it. So yeah, everybody just came together and said, this is a good time to launch. And yeah, here we are.
Wow, so how things fall into place, eh?
Exactly.
So, obviously you launched in a difficult time. So then how do you manage to market your business in this time, and how do you make people aware of your business?
So I think I know COVID had like enormous impacts, and a lot of businesses are struggling to regain market share again. But for us, the behavior that changed during COVID is that a lot of people are now on social media and are using their computers, and it actually just made it much easier because we decided to take a social media entry point, and we are creating the awareness there. So YouTube, Google, Facebook, all those kind of places, and that served us very well up to now. Yeah, so that is how we decided to market it. The reason for that was because you get so much more data. So you can actually see whether your market fit is correct or not, whether there's things that you should tweak because people don't understand your message, or there's things that is not clear enough. And we get that input every single day. And yeah, the awareness campaigns are phenomenal. The reach is just so much wider than trying to do it physically. But we are also very much focusing on creating word of mouth. So personal interactions with agents, landlords, and tenants, and get that going in the market. Because I think if you have people that have used your product and actually saw the benefit of it, there's no better marketing than word of mouth.
No, sure. So did you start in Stellenbosch, or did you decide to start in Johannesburg? How did it spread?
So that's the awesome thing about the social media campaign. It was all over the country. So originally, before COVID, we would have launched in Joburg and Cape Town specifically. But we decided, well, we're on Google. We're going geographically, actually targeting the whole of South Africa. And I must say, the reaction was very unexpected. So obviously the two metropoles acted as expected. They were quite active, but we've also reached places like Rustenburg and KZN, a few places in KZN. And yeah, so with the social media launch came the benefit of reaching the whole country.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, so let's move on to our next question then. So what has been your biggest challenge to overcome? I know COVID obviously put a spanner in the works, but there must have been other challenges that seemed insurmountable.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me personally was just to stick to the vision and the commitment. Because I think when COVID struck, everybody was like, oh, this is huge. And you actually almost wanted to stop everything and then just sit and wait. So for me to stand up and say, no, we have a vision, we believe in what we want to accomplish and want to do, let's just get it done, was a big challenge. But then also to keep focus for the team. So with all the uncertainties, people were like, oh, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should now pivot and start doing something else. And just to say, no, stick to your guns. Let's just get what we have finished and put it in the market was quite a big mission for us. So yeah, those two I think would be the two biggest challenges to overcome.
Okay. So obviously facing those challenges, then who or where did you go for advice? I mean, I know what it's like running a small business, that you become so involved in the detail that sometimes you don't actually have the opportunity to stand back and take a helicopter view and see where the problems are. You need to bounce ideas off other people. So who do you go to for advice? Preferably
Yeah,
not the
so
book.
yeah, read a million books, try and get that kind of advice. But I think for me, it really rests on two pillars. The one is you have to find a way to ground yourself and understand what your vision for you personally is. What do you want to accomplish, and how that interacts with your company? Because obviously those two influence each other. And for that, I get it from my religion. So that's my base. Everything that I base my decisions on comes from that place of grounding. But then you're very right. In this world that we live in, you need to have input from people that are not emotionally attached to your business and that can help you to get that helicopter view. And what I found very useful is I've built up a network of professionals that I really trust, because it's also a matter of people will tell you what you want to hear. So you need to find those people that are actually honest enough that when you are doing something that's really not good for your business, that they will actually stand up and say, hey, just sit back and see what you are doing. So I have a few, like 4 or 5 people that I bounce information off, and they are professionals in their own right. They are marketing specialists, and yeah, and that's where I go for my advice.
Okay. My next question is based on research that we found through this process of doing these coffee chats, is that what's becoming more and more important to people is obviously not one, how to run your businesses, but the second part is how to balance running your business and that work-life balance that people have been talking about for so many years, and everybody just pays two cents of attention to it, but it is so important. So how do you manage the balance between a mom with 2 girls and working from home and trying to launch something new into the market?
Oh, you are so spot on. I have read countless books to try and help me to find that balance. And working from home, I think, didn't help that situation quite a lot. But what I've realized is it's actually a matter of choosing your boundaries. And you have to be consistent with that. And you have to commit to that, because as soon as you make one deviation and get the kids in times when you have to work, then it's all out the window. So it took quite a while to find that balance. So when I work, I work. When I play hard. And I think the other thing that helped a lot is incorporating the kids in the business from the start. So they are also so proud about Averly, and they understand that, you have to have meetings and you have to speak to people and get things done. Otherwise, the business does not work. So I had a few meetings where my 5-year-old were actually sitting on my lap and taking notes, CEO notes of what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that also contributed to the fact that it's okay. So as long as they understand the rules of not interrupting and just listening and take it in, and I can do my work, it works quite well. So yeah, it's a matter of boundaries, and I am not there yet. We are still figuring it out, but it is starting to pay off dividends.
I don't think you're alone in that regard in terms of trying to find the balance, or who's figured it out yet. I've never met anybody.
No.
But do you think that's going to become the norm now? Is that family life and work life are going to become more intertwined?
Yeah, I think we have been kidding ourselves thinking that you can actually separate the two. I mean, they are so intertwined. And if you do the maths, you sit at work most of your time. So I think it will become a new normal. And I don't necessarily think it's bad to have it that way. Like I said, my kids now have a more profound understanding of what a business is and what it all entails. And I truly believe it will stand them in good stead when they have to make choices about what they want to do in their life and actually understand the complications and the accountability that comes with running a business. But I do think what is important is to be able to switch off. So you can't work 24/7. That's not good. And people will have to take accountability of their own health and say, you know what, you need at least 7 hours of rest. So you need to make time to sleep. You need to actually just relax and not think about your business, because worrying about it more will not take your problems away. But if you're in a good space, mentally and physically, it actually helps your business. So yeah, it's all about boundaries and deciding what boundaries work for you and implementing that.
Okay, let me move to my next question then. So, what's next for Averly? I mean, I'm not asking you to share your roadmap with us, but what's next for you and Averly?
Yeah, so it's quite exciting. Obviously, our first focus is just to get our footprint out in the market and getting some customers that actually can see the benefits that we want to bring to the market. But then with the launch, a few opportunities also came our way that we are really excited about and pursuing quite diligently. So yeah, it's now getting down to the hard stuff and every day put on your shoes and just get out there and work.
Shoes. I haven't taken my slippers off for 5 months, but yeah.
It can be any shoes. It doesn't have to be fancy shoes.
Okay. Zabeth, thank you so much for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'm sure there'll be a number of people who would like to ask you a couple of questions.
No problem.
So anybody got any questions in for Zabeth? I think people are a bit shy today.
Richard,
Yes.
I would like to ask Sabet, now that you've launched officially, do you have quite a couple of, who would you say would be your majority market, tenants or landlords or estate agents?
So that's actually very interesting, Caroline. Currently, it's split equally. And I think the reason for that is because we deliberately made the decision not to take sides. So the idea is that they all come together on the app. So obviously, tenants get the app for free, so they don't have to subscribe, and agents and landlords do subscribe. The reason for that is because the services that's given are management services, so agents and landlords get a lot of benefit from that. But yeah, currently, what we can see the trend is small and medium-sized businesses are the ones that subscribe more, because I think this is the first opportunity that we give one software that actually does the work of about 11 other packages that you would normally have to have in your business to run a rental business.
Okay. I have a question here on the chat from Lulani. She's saying, how do you sign up? How do they get access to your platform?
Oh, that's so easy. Just type in when you're in Google or Safari or whatever search engine you use, Averly.com, and right at the top right-hand corner is sign up. And how it works is your first 30 days are free. And when you've signed up for a trial, we will actually contact you and give you tips and help you to navigate the site and get a bit of a feeling for what you can and can't do. But yeah, it's as easy as typing in averly.com.
Okay. I got a question. I mean, obviously you're putting tenants and agents together. Is there any sort of plans to expand it into like a marketplace where people can offer services on those type of platforms?
Yeah, you absolutely read our minds for the future. And that's one of the things that we are working on very hard right now. But yeah, that is the idea, to have a safe marketplace and use the Averly score actually for people to get an idea of who you will deal with, irrespective of whether you're a tenant, agent, landlord, plumber. Every service that's linked to the rentals will be on the marketplace.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so are there any questions? Any other further questions?
Richard, I have another one. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Is there someone else?
That I can see.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard someone speaking. I'm quite curious, Zabeth. After your recent articles in Rapport and Sunlight Times, do you do you find that it's more how can I say it? Did it pay off a little bit more if you can differentiate rather than or to all the social media exposure that you have going?
So we could definitely see with those type of interactions, the interest on the website spiked quite a lot, and we received a lot of requests to actually interact with people. So yes, it definitely have an impact. The benefit that we had is we did not pay for those articles. So it was actually journalists that saw us on the web and saw our social media campaigns that actually contacted us and said, hey, can we write an article about you? So it didn't cost us anything. I wouldn't necessarily think that the return would be justified if we had to pay for an advert.
Okay, because my curiosity was specifically compared to the latest trends on social media and the more traditional old way of newspapers exposure.
Yeah, so there's definitely still a lot of people reading newspapers, but I think if you want volumes to your business, social media is the way to go. We get a lot more activity from our social media campaigns than what we are getting from your traditional channels.
Okay, are there any other questions for Zabeth? Zabeth, sorry. Nothing. Okay, let's move on to the takeaways. So, Zabeth, what I do is normally when I engage with a speaker like you, is that we try and extrapolate what are the key salient points of what makes you guys successful or what you found that contributes to your success. And it's normally 4 or 5 points. And the things that I've picked out is you've built on what you know, which is a good recipe for most successful entrepreneurs. And you've also expanded that envelope. So your family business has been in property development and rentals, etc. And now the next generation is built on top of that and expanded that envelope. One of the other key factors that we find, especially with entrepreneurs, is resilience and focus. Without those two components, none of these entrepreneurs actually ever make it. And then the last one, which is probably the most important one of the lot, is having a strong support system around you. Because we find with all these entrepreneurs, unless you have a strong support system, whether it be family, your church, professional advisors, a business coach, or whoever, if you don't have that around you, then they're normally headstrong type of people who believe they know it all, and none of us have got all the answers. So what I normally do is after every 10 of these coffee chats, I write an article and I start combining all of these takeaways. I don't do any statistical modeling or anything like that, but you start looking for the golden thread. And we are 2 coffee chats away from another article, which I will share with everyone. But there is definitely a strong trend coming through, especially from the first 10 and now the second 10. There seems to be 7 or 8 salient points that always seem to prop up on what the success factors are. So those are my takeaways. I don't know if you agree with them or not.
100%. Yeah, no, spot on.
Okay, so now what we're going to do, we wrap up. So if you need help or if you have any questions, or sorry, now before I do that, there are 2 things that I was asked to talk about. The first thing is there's a charity, a ladies' charity for cancer. It's called I Love Boobies. And because of the lockdown, they normally have fun runs where they raise funds. But this year they're having what they call a virtual run. It's a 5-kilometer run. Go and have a look at I Love Boobies on Google. Let me see if I can put my camera on. I've just bought a pair of socks. I just want to show you guys if you can see this. There's a sticker that I got, and there's a pair of socks that I bought. And this money goes towards the charity. Just before it starts crackling, let's switch this video off again. So please go and have a look at that. The virtual run is on the 10th of October, and on the 9th of October, the local person here in Stellenbosch who runs this charity, a chap by the name of Cecil Munch, is going to come and chat to us and tell us all about this particular charity. So please, if you feel like it, then support the charity. And the second thing is, Zabeth, I know you mentioned go to Averly.com, but is there any other way that people could get hold of you after this call?
Yeah, sure. I can give my email address. Let me type it in on the chat.
Otherwise, I can share it. I normally do a video recording of this, and then I'll share your contact details in that, and I'll send the email with the video recording to everybody as well.
Perfect. So my email is zabeth@averly.com, or my cell phone number is 082-453386. And
Great.
very happy to interact with anybody.
Wonderful. Okay, guys, I believe we're going to have a cold weekend, so I hope you wrap up nice and warm and you enjoy your weekend. So until then, I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, Richard.